Hello everyone. Today I'm going to change the shock absorbers on the rear of my BMW E90. I have to do this because the car has 125,000 kilometers. Recently during my holidays a rear spring broke, so that complicated slightly my holidays and I had to get them replaced where I was. So the springs are new. I'm only going to change the shocks, and the guy told me that they're probably at the end of their life, and around that mileage it's going to be the case. Unless you've only done highway, they can then be kept for a longer time. But I've done a lot of mountain roads. I've pulled the caravan for maybe 10 or 15,000 kilometers, so the ones that are on are worn out. On the right side I've already done it, so I'm going to be able to show you a few things that were a bit tricky. It doesn't concern the mounting of the shock absorber itself. The biggest hassle was with the interior trims. So I'm going to show you a bit more in detail. So first I'm going to show you down here. So here's the shock absorber with this foam thing. On the other side it was really coming apart. On this side, yeah, it's getting ripped apart. And basically it just is into this rubber mount and bolted in from underneath right here. The rubber mount has two screws like this. This is Torx. You'll need a Torx female socket to take that out. I'll show you that later. The spring is new, so don't have to take care of that. Although it doesn't seem too complicated. I'm not sure. I can't really tell you because I haven't done the spring before. But I think you can just lower. You just have to bring down this rollover strut, I think, with a jack stand, for example. Bring it down, take the spring out, put the new one in, and then bring it back up. I think you can do it like that. So that's for the wheel side of the shock absorber, not too complicated. And up here we'll have to take off a nut which is behind this this trim. So on the other side it's under here. When you take this off, you have the guide support, the upper guide support, and there's another one underneath. So that's fairly easy to take care of. The hardest thing to do was to take this off for me, because there are a few screws on it, but you can't see much from above. When you take this, the first parts are easy to do. The bottom of the trunk is easy to take off. This side trim as well, this one as well, and then there are a few fasteners to take off which look like this. The ones you just pull up the center part and then they pop out. So there was one here, there was a few around, so you'll find them easily. You'll be able to lift them up, and then on these side trims there are screws like this. There's one here, there are two in there. You'll need a Torx T25 bit, a T20 and a T45 to take out all the screws that maintain this trim. Has a slightly different shape from on the left than from the right, but you'll need these three Torx bits to take them out. And then the tricky thing is that this part is held by little sort of tabs like this, and I don't know if there's a specific method to get them out, but it is a bit of a hassle. There are a few like that, there, and there. Honestly, I don't have the solution to take them out, apart from trying to look under the part, and you're just sort of gonna have to lift your way around and try and find the little tabs to take out. So here, for example, I have one of these fasteners, and I have this kind of tool. I have like something like this with different tools to remove trims. So when you have that, that's the simplest thing. Otherwise, you can use a flathead screwdriver to get this out. So you pull out the center and then it pops out. Put this aside. That frees the bottom. Over there, I don't think there is another one. The T45 Torx bit was for this over here. And then, yeah, there's nothing complicated about this. Over here there is this little trim covering the hook that holds back the seats, if you have the foldable rear seats. And what I do is just pull back this center part like this. You have to sort of lift this center tab, and then you can remove this, and it will give you a lot more space to take off this trim. So it just looks like that. There are two tabs on each side which go underneath there, which hold it in place, and this thing just folds back into position when you put it back. So put this aside as well. I'm going to take off the screws. If you have the rear lighter plug, you'll have to unplug it from behind. It's just a connector like that, so that's simple. So I'll take off the screws and then I'll try and show you a bit better how to take off this cover over there. Alright, so over there we had this. Up here, two screws. They look like that. And just over here on the side, just a little one like that. I'll keep them here. And with that done, the bottom part moves, but on top nothing moves because there is a screw. There. And to get to this one, we have to take off this trim there, this one, and this is the tricky part and the really annoying part, because it's not clear how you have to go on about it. I'm just trying to see if I can find tabs on which I could press and sort of free the whole part. But what I see is that it's been clearly designed to be popped in easily and quickly in factory, but not made for taking it off, or at least not very often. So try and make your way around. And I think it's also sort of made so that you have to move it from side to side to free the tabs. What makes me think that? These. See, there's a hooked part on each side. So I guess if you move it from one way to and then the other way, you can probably free them, but it's a pretty crappy way to go. This one, I think I managed to push it with something to free it, because this one was held over here. So you have to sort of look underneath the part on this side, there, and try and liberate it. Sorry, I can't give you any more precise information. I haven't got the exact method on this. Okay, I managed basically by just wiggling it around like hell until it got loose. So now you see there's another screw here and another fastener here. So I'm gonna just take these two off, and those were the last things holding it into position, apart from the floor thing. But that's easy. There are just two fasteners like that, and then you just sort of lift it up and you'll manage to take this part out. Now you can take this off. What? Don't tell me it's still held by something. It isn't, but you have to get it through this. Oh, you can take this off. Take this off and even take it out. Now we should be able to bring it out. It's also a bit stuck behind the side of the seat. Okay, here we go. Here's the shape of the part. All this goes underneath the floor panel, and then this behind the seat, the sides of the part of the seat. Put this aside, and now we can access this cover, which is the interesting part for us. Just goes off really easily, and here we have our upper support. So let's get down to business. Over here on the top, you'll need, I think, I'm not sure what size this is. 16 is a bit too big, and 15 too small. So I think it's like 15 and a half. I don't know. I don't have a key of that size, but I have this, so it's gonna work. I did it on the other side. You'll need to hold this top part either with a flat wrench or a 6mm socket that you'll put on here, otherwise it's probably going to turn. I'm going to hold the top and unscrew. It's not hard, for me at least. It comes out fairly easily. I just don't have the best tool for that. So that was just to see if it comes out well. Now underneath, I'm going to do the same. Make sure all my screws are coming out nicely. A little advice I can give you is before you start, put some penetrating fluid on the screws you want to undo. So I put some up here. The screws are coming from underneath, but if I put some fluid there, it will go through. For this one and the one on the other side, and also the one underneath. So this is the bottom of the shock absorber. It's a 17mm socket. Hope it goes out easily. Okay, here it comes out in one go. So I'm not gonna take it out fully, but just seeing if it goes out well. If you are changing the rubber mount, you're gonna need an E12 socket. So these two screws, you might not have to change it, but if you're going to do the job, may as well change as many things as possible so they come out fine as well on both sides. I always like trying to undo every screw, every bolt first to make sure I'm not going to be stuck at one stage and already undone too many things. Now this one is a little bit harder. That's why you need the right socket, otherwise you're probably going to ruin the screw. Okay, we're good. Now I'm just going to support the bottom of the suspension by putting a jack stand under here, and by putting this there I'm going to be able to bring the suspension up or down, and it's going to also avoid the spring pushing the whole thing down as soon as I take off the top screw of the shock absorber. So I'm leaving this underneath, and now I'm going to take off the top screw by just undoing it as I showed you, and then I'll take care of the bottom. If there isn't too much strain on the shock absorber, you can use a socket and it will go a bit faster to undo this. See, it's coming off by itself, and that's also a good thing about the using a jack stand underneath. If you push it up, you'll have less pressure on this and you won't have to hold this center part. So that's for the upper support guide. You can take that off. I'm going to replace this one. I have the new one of this, and there's nothing else here. The rest is from underneath. Now I'm going to just try and pull down the shock absorber. So I'm going to first pull down all this foam stuff, and since it's an old one, it doesn't really oppose a lot of strength. You see, I can just push it down and it barely goes up by itself. So that means it's really worn out. These parts will have to go on the new one, so I'm going to take them. I haven't ordered new things for these new parts because I didn't really know they existed. I'm going to just give them a clean and put them on the new unit. And now I can take off the bottom screw, and I'll be able to take out the old shock. So that's the 17mm screw that was underneath. Nothing complicated about that. I can finish it just with the socket. Here's the nut, and I'm just going to wiggle this out. And it's coming out from its bushing here, like so. And here we have one old and worn out shock absorber, which has no more strength. It doesn't. It does come up, but it should come up by itself. So this one is dead. I will have to get this part back, this sort of protection cap. It's a metal cap, and I'll need it on the new one because I don't have a new part for that. I've just taken off the 2 screws of the rubber mounting underneath, so I should be able to take it out fairly easily. Just pushing it up so you can see. Here we go. This is the old one. Got the new one prepared. It's symmetrical, so you can put it in both ways. I'm going to put it right back in. Like that. And put the screws back on by hand. Always by hand at first. Always have a better feeling of things when you screw them on by hand, otherwise you could get them sideways and ruin the screw or the thread. Okay, let's assemble all this together. I took off the supporting cup from this foam thing, and I don't know if I've ever seen something as rusty as this. I really tried and take off all the rust I could with a screwdriver, but it's really severely corroded. So order this part, try and find it before you change your suspension. It's probably better to put a new one. That saying, I'm not sure that in a garage they will change this part. If you go to install new shock absorbers, they'll probably just change this, and maybe this, maybe. I've often seen, even in videos, putting like this stuff back on, which is completely worn out. So just let me show you. This is the old one. It goes down pretty easily and it doesn't come back up again. I have to pull to get this back. So this one is dead. You can even see the corrosion accumulated up here from that cap. For the new one, I'm just putting this back on for comfort. I'm going to press the same way. This way is simpler. And do the full course of the shock absorber a few times to sort of get it going, and see how it comes back by itself. The old one really didn't do that, so I'm going to do this, I don't know, 5 times. I don't know if there's a specific amount of times you have to do it. I'm going to make sure it just goes all the way from fully compressed to fully deployed. And I lost time. Okay, so let's get to the mounting. Between this old part and the new one, it's the same thing, but there is, 2mm difference. So this one got a bit crushed with time. So this is going to go from inside the car, so don't take care of that now. I'm going to put this on first. So the foam has the skinny part that goes into this thing, if you bought the new ones. And there's a little groove there, so it just fits into position. Now I can slide it down. This awful part will go over here. I'm going to put some penetrating fluid, which also is a water dispersant, so to hope maybe to slow down this rust damage. And maybe one day I'll try and install a new one. This will go up here like so. It did fit pretty snugly over the foam, so I'm putting it back as it was. I cleaned up this rubber thing, which went, this thing I'm going to reuse as well, because I didn't know there was this part, so I didn't order it. Putting it back there, putting this cap back here, and I'm good to put this back into the car. So now this is a bit too big, since it's fully out. I'm going to push it in and put the bottom first. I have to go quickly because it wants to expand. What I'm going to do is lower the wheel a little, because I don't have enough room, and now it's going to give me a bit more space to get this in. Yes. So put it back in there. Once it's in at the bottom, I'll put in the new nut. I'm not going to tighten it fully right now until I've adjusted the strut into the car. I'm just going to screw it a little bit on, but not too much. Now compress it again. Can you see the hole up there? Yes. And bring it in. Make sure it's nice and center, that this rubber seal goes in, and we're good. All I need to do is tighten the nut down here, and now put the other part up there. Here is our new strut. Just put this on. Make sure you put the new one on. When you're tightening this bolt underneath, you can hold the shock, the bottom of the shock here, with a 15mm flat key, so that you can tighten it correctly, because it will want to spin, and as soon as you fully tightened it, you'll feel it straight away. It's going to block by itself, because you don't have a lot of thread, you see. It's going to go up here, and then as soon as you're in the right position, it won't be able to go any further. Now for this one, just screw it on as long as you can by hand. Then I think you might be able to do a bit of the way with the ratchet, but then the rod's going to turn, so you'll have to hold the center probably. And same for this, for the top part, you feel it right away when you've done the full tightening. So don't go any further. This is an unscrewable bolt, an unscrewable nut, sorry. So just make sure it's tightened as it should be, and don't go too far with that. So up here we're good, down there we're good. I can put this back on, and we're done. You're still going to have to put all this back in. The trims, at least these top trims, will be easier to put back than they were to take off. So that's one good thing. And for the rest, just make sure you've put every screw back. You don't want to have some left in your hands at the end. But that's all there is to it. You can always check one last time all the screws and bolts you've put back on. So this one, the one on the other side, and the main one. And here you have it, nice new shock absorbers. And they would be even newer if I had changed that, but too bad. I'll have fun another time to take that off. Actually, it wouldn't be too complicated. All you have to do is take off, well, not too complicated. There still is the trim part, which is pretty crappy, so yeah. Either don't put the trim back, either don't change this, either order it in the first place. That's the best solution. Sorry for the dog noises, the hunting dogs. So I'm no professional. I managed to do this fairly easily, so you should too. I think anyone can do that. The annoying part are the trims. That's really the only difficulty I had. Apart from that, make sure you order all the right parts. You can always have a look on a site like Real OEM to see all the parts needed, so that you don't have any problems when you put the new ones. Alright, I wish you a good installation of your new shock absorbers, and I'll see you next time in another video. Cheers.